How do you figure out which of your designs will sell? Well, by listening to the experts. Today, we're delving into the future of design with a leading voice in the creative industry, Brenda Milis from Adobe. Adobe's influence on the design landscape is undeniable. Their innovative tools and insightful trend forecasting have shaped the way creatives approach their work for decades. We're privileged to have Brenda with us today to discuss Adobe's predictions for the defining creative trends of 2025.
So hey there, I'm Brenda Milis. I'm the Principal of Consumer and Creative Insights at Adobe. My role is basically driving research and identifying trending visuals that are hitting mainstream appeal to support the production of relevant and engaging visuals, designs for all types of businesses.
I look forward to Adobe's trend predictions every year. How do you identify the trends?
There's a lot of parts to this answer because I work with an incredibly wide range of external, in other words, third-party reports, campaigns. I'm on all social media platforms every day, looking at posts, looking at brand spots. And we also have a lot of proprietary internal data, such as stock keyword search history across the months and year, as well as our customer curation requests and rising Firefly prompts to identify patterns in visuals and themes rising in media presence, in customer demand, and really kind of putting those puzzle pieces together. In other words, if I'm seeing similar visuals, themes, creative techniques in campaigns that are in completely different sectors, let's say tech, real estate, beauty, nutrition, healthcare, I really need to see those similarities, those similar patterns across different business sectors. And that's when I know, using the qualitative and quantitative data, that we have a major macro trend. In other words, a trend that is rising and will continue to rise throughout the year.
To me, these creative trends are helpful for designing products, but they're also fantastic to use for marketing and brand building. How can sellers incorporate this into their branding?
We all know that we're living in a very quickly changing world, which means the creative landscape is also changing very quickly. That's because of disruptions in the world, let's say, but also developments in technology. So I really look at kind of all of those factors, what we call global drivers, to understand not just what is becoming more popular visually, but why. And so to your point about brand building, I work with Adobe customers, but also visual artists, in other words, any type of Adobe user in the Creative Cloud, and give them this information to help them think about which trends, not all trends will be relevant to all customers or all projects, but which of these trends have relevance, and just deciding which elements to integrate into their own work to consistently evolve and have kind of a supportive strategy so that they know as they evolve their brand, whether it's a solo content creator or an enterprise creative professional, we're all developing our brand to stay relevant and to make sure that what we're planning, what we're producing will be engaging. And that's really what it's for. It's support for strategy and production. Yeah.
Can you walk me through the things that you've outlined as highly relevant in 2025?
Almost always there are 4 creative trends per year. The first we're calling Fantastic Frontiers, which is really this kind of beautiful, dreamy, surreal, whimsical trend where things, are clearly fantasy. And while, for example, AI-generated imagery has affected or influenced this aesthetic, it really goes back to kind of these beautiful digital worlds through gaming, for example. But I try to let people know that, yes, it can be kind of this epic version, but it could also just be very simple in terms of, let's say, photography or design, beautiful iridescent shimmers and gradients, light leaks. I help people kind of pare it down to its most basic, the simplest thing, that something feels dreamlike or surreal in a really lovely way, kind of to surprise and delight customers and consumers. Yeah. The second of the 4 is called Levity and Laughter, and it's absolutely simple in its presentation, but it's really important and hugely scaling right now because we're living in a time where people want escapism, a little relief, a little entertainment, and our global population, our global audiences tend to be, quite frankly, really divided culturally and politically. So it's a way to present your message, present your brand, open people's hearts and minds, entertain them, but also avoid being divisive. The third is called Time Warp. I'm finding it's one of artists' favorites. AI influenced, but just as much in the traditional production space. It's kind of like a new retrofuturism. It's people kind of creating a mashup of past, sometimes present, and future. And frankly, it's incredibly creative. It's like this fresh new aesthetic by blending elements from different eras without feeling like you have to be in any way like formally appropriate to specific generations. So what I'm finding with artist feedback and designer feedback is they love this because they get to play with the past, but in an innovative way. It's kind of like the best of both worlds. Nostalgia is so huge right now. So it has kind of the comfort of nostalgia, but the excitement of doing it in an innovative way. The fourth is called Immersive Appeal. It's based on incredible appetite around the world for visual experiences that are multisensorial, kind of a lot of times because of the pandemic. We're on the screen so much. So people are really going into these literal spaces where they're surrounded by imagery, but also it can be as simple as, something motion or something still that just has very dimensional, where it pulls the eye into the frame. And we're finding that to be incredibly powerful because, again, people feel like it's this depth of experience, quite literally.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us, Brenda. I'm already buzzing with ideas. It all sounds a little advanced for me, not gonna lie, but I'll find a way to try them out.
I know it can be like with Immersive Appeal, have you heard of the Sphere in Las Vegas? Like it's just this epic experience. Doesn't have to be that way. That's just the epic, crazy version of it. But it's thinking about how you can create typography, imagery that really feels dimensional.
Unfortunately, I'm not a very good designer. Our regular viewers know that this is my big weakness, but you don't need to be a design pro to bring these trends to life, and I will prove it. Adobe has amazing tools like Adobe Express that make it super easy for anyone, even beginners, and I'll also be leaning on Adobe Stock pretty heavily. Let me show you what I came up with. For the Fantastic Frontiers trend, I wanted to try it for some social media assets just to show you that it's possible. The collection created by Adobe features many astronomy motifs and luminous hues, so I looked for images of the moon and came up with this Instagram story. Another aspect of this trend that I found interesting is the surreal and fantastical theme. I'm a big fan of surrealist art, and my favorite painter is Rene Magritte. By overlaying some graphics, I've managed to create a design that pays homage to his famous painting, The Son of Man. Lastly, I wanted to really challenge myself and create a graphic that could be easily embroidered. For my design, I decided to use this unique paradoxical shape, which fits the surreal theme perfectly. After looking through Adobe's collection for Levity and Laughter, I loved this illustration of a laughing grandma, so I made it into a canvas poster. Another graphic I found on Adobe Stock is this funny fish, which made me think of a pun, so here is that idea on a mug. Lastly, I decided to follow Brenda's advice and use humor to discuss something more sensitive, so here's a mental health joke I put on a shirt. When I hear time warp, my mind goes in two directions, the past and the future. The first thing I tried was looking for old-timey, almost steampunk-inspired images. I ended up choosing this graphic to create a motivational mousepad. Next, I looked for something retro and nostalgic, and as someone who used to listen to cassette tapes all the time, that's what I chose. The proportions seemed perfect for a notebook, so I just added Dear Diary onto the front to tie it all together. I still had something futuristic to create, and this time I started with the product first, our minimalist backpack. Since it's an all-over print item, I wanted to make the design feel like a pattern, and then it clicked. One Matrix-inspired backpack, coming right up. At first, I was worried that immersive appeal would be difficult to represent in 2D designs, but it turned out to be the most fun trend of all. The two standout elements in Adobe's collection were realistic textures and immersive scenes, so I decided to try both. After browsing for a bit, I found this gorgeous photo of a forest path, which really has the otherworldly qualities described by this trend. I decided to make it into a very large poster, leaning into the immersive experience. Next, I wanted to try creating a 3D texture using a text effect, but couldn't find one that really matched my idea. Instead, I created a flat PNG of the word tired, added some more flat drips to it, and took that image into Adobe Firefly. This really gave me that custom effect I wanted, which will only be amplified when I put this graphic on a hoodie using direct film printing. I can't believe how easy this was. Considering my lack of experience, I think the designs I made ended up great. Or at least, I like them. Take a look at the trend report to see if you can do better. But in the meantime, happy selling!